Hello students, today I will explain you a beautiful poem written by Robert Southey, that is After Blenheim. Before starting the line-by line explanation, let us understand something about the poet and the poem. Robert Southey is a romantic poet. In this poem, he criticizes war. After Blenheim is an anti-war poem. Now the question arises, what is an anti-war poem? An anti-war poem is that which sharply criticizes the destruction and death caused by war. That is, it does not glorify war. It does not tell us that war is a good thing. It talks about the 18th century famous Battle of Blenheim. It tells us about the Battle of Blenheim, which was fought in year 1704. It was fought between the English and Austrians on one side and the French on other side. And as a result, the English and Austrians won victory over the French. And the grand victory of English was under the leader Duke of Marlborough and Prince Eugene. After Blenheim is written in the form of ballad. A ballad is a long song or poem that tells a story. This poem tells us a story is like a story narrated by a grandfather named Caspar. Robert Southey brings about the horrors of war to the people in a simple but an ironical way. The language which he has used is very simple, but the way he has explained is ironical. That is, by saying something, he wants to tell us that horrors of war is not good. There is always loss in the war. So let's begin. In this poem, there is three characters, that is the older Caspar, his two grandchildren Wilhelmine and Peterkin. This poem is a narrative poem. In this poem, starts with a narration by old grandfather Caspar. So let's begin. It was a summer evening. Old Caspar's work was done, and he, before his cottage door, was sitting in the sun, and by him sported on the green his little child Wilhelmine. So the poem begins by picturizing a vivid scene of a summer evening. Usually, it is the time when most people return from work. The days of summers are very long and tiring, as the weather of summer is very hot and the sun sets late in the evening. So, an elderly farmer named Caspar sits in front of his cottage watching his grandchildren Wilhelmine and Peterkin playing on the green field in front of him. She saw her brother Peterkin roll something large and round, which he beside the rivulet in playing there had found. He come to ask what he had found that was so large and smooth and round. Now the Wilhelmine, the granddaughter of old Caspar, saw her brother Peterkin rolling something large and round, which he found beside the river. Meanwhile, Caspar was sitting around observing his action. Now, out of curiosity, Peter takes that something to his grandfather, wanting to know it about. The old Casper took it from the boy who stood expectant by, and then the old man shook his head and with a natural sigh, "'Tis some poor fellow's skull," said he, "who fell in the great victory." The elderly Casper took that round thing from the Peterkin, who was left in anticipation, curiosity to know what was it. After a brief look at it, Casper shook his head with a sigh and found it to be a skull of some poor fellow. Here the poor fellow refers to a soldier who has died in the war in the Battle of Blenheim, in the great victory. He remarked the battle as the great victory, despite the death of the thousands of people. I find them in the garden, for there's many here about, and often when I go to plough, the ploughshare turns them out. For many thousand men, said he, were slain in that great victory. Now the Casper begins to tell the children about this skull. He says that the Battle of Blenheim. He says that he found many such skulls in the garden. Many such skulls in the garden when he was ploughing the field. He told his grandchildren that the Battle of Blenheim led to the death of thousands of soldiers whose dead body lie deep scattered in the field. Further, he relates how he had found many such skulls while ploughing the fields. He remarked the Battle of Blenheim as the great victory. According to him, the death of many soldiers served the purpose of victory in the battle. Now tell us what was all about. Young Peterkin, he cries, and little Wilhelmine looks up with wonder-waiting eyes. Now tell us all about the war and what they fought each other for. Now the grandchildren's curiosity rises up. They now ask the questions to their grandfather that now tell us about all the matter, that what was it, what was the cause of the war. It was a general way that a child has in curiosity of asking something. So the young Peterkin asked his grandfather that to tell him all about the battle. Hearing about the battle, the children were restless to know more about it. For them, battle seemed to bring about thrill and excitement. Meanwhile, the little Wilhelmine looks up to his grandfather with wonder-waiting eyes. The wonder-waiting eyes means expecting to see and hear things. It is usual among the children that hearing something new, their curiosity begins, and they expect to hear something about the battle. It was the English, Casper cried, who put the French to rout. But what they fought for each other for, I could not well make out. But everybody said, quoth he, that was a famous victory. He told to the children that the battle was fought between the English and the French, and the English defeated the French in the battle. But he could not tell the reason that why they fought each other for. But he can only say that it was a famous victory. Here he also tells that the thousands of soldiers were died in the battle, but he quotes the battle in the two words, that is a famous victory. He was of lack of curiosity. He does not want to know about the reason behind the war. In fact, he doesn't try to find it. He remembers what everybody told him, that the victory was famous, and he repeated it to himself time and again to put some belief in words. Now, my father lived at Blenheim, yon little stream hard by. They burnt his dwelling to the ground, and he was forced to fly. So with his wife and child he fled, nor had he where to rest his head. Now further, Caspar recollects some past memory scenarios of the war. He begins by remembering his father, who lived in a small village of Blenheim near the small stream or river. The soldiers burnt his house, and like him, several innocent people's house. Consequently, his father has to leave his house with his wife and child and fled. That time he does not have a home to get shelter. They was homeless. With fire and sword, the country round was wasted far and wide, and many a childing mother, then a newborn baby died. But things like that, must be at every famous victory. In this stanza, the poet describes the severity of battle. The fire and sword here is sword. Here it can be sword, which symbolizes that man's cruelty for man. Fire, white or sword represent the destruction, death and horror. Further, Caspar tells the grandchildren about that many a childing mother, that is, many pregnant women had died, and the newborn baby, that the baby has just born, has died in the battle. But despite of the death of thousands of innocent people, he says that but things like that, must be at every famous victory. That is the English won the match, and it was a famous victory for them. And he tells that it is like the every war, that thousands of people are dead, and one party has won the match, won the war. It is ironical here that old Caspar is telling here about the grandchildren about the death and destruction caused by war. But despite telling about the death and destruction caused by war, he tells that it is all fine. It is all fine, like that in all famous victory. He only quotes the war in two words, that is famous victory. Here, the famous victory is written several times in the poem at the last of approximately every stanza, as with the intention that to create a sense of irony among the people. They say it was a shocking sight. After the field was won, for many thousand bodies here lay rotting in the sun. But things like that, must be after a famous victory. Further, Caspar told the grandchildren that he listened from the people that it was a shocking scene where thousands of dead bodies of soldiers lay rotting in the field. But again he tells them that it's all fine. It's like it must be like a famous victory. Again, it is ironical that despite telling the destruction caused by the war, he is saying that the war was a famous victory, and it is as usual in a war. Great praise the Duke of Marlborough won, and our good Prince Eugene. Why, 'twas a wicked thing, said little Wilhelmine. Nay, nay, my little girl, quoth he, it was a famous victory. He tells them that the Duke of Marlborough and Prince Eugene won the match, won the war, and got very praise from the people. But Wilhelmine said that, why, it was a very big thing. It was very bad that it was a famous victory which was led on the dead body of thousands of people. Now, the old Caspar remarked on his sentence that, nay, nay, my little girl, quoth he, it was a famous victory. He says that, no, my little girl, that it is not a big thing. It is all just like it was, that must be after a famous victory. Again, he repeated that it was a famous victory to make the sense of irony in the poem. And everybody praised the Duke who this great fight did won. But what good came of it at last? Quoth little Peterkin. Why I can't tell, cannot tell, said he, but it was a famous victory. Every people praised the Duke of Marlborough for winning that war, but Peterkin asked old Caspar that what good come of it, that what was the good result of the war. And on the answer of the question of Peterkin, the old Caspar replied that he cannot tell that, but the only thing he can tell was that it was a famous victory. That it was a famous victory. Now we will discuss about the theme of the poem. There are three themes of the poem. First, man's cruelty to man. The poem after Blenheim shows the man's cruelty to man. It tells that one man wants victory, has great praise on the dead body of thousands of peoples. It tells us that one man becomes a winner or the victorious on the death of thousands of people, destroying the lives of thousands of people. Second, curiosity and lack of it. The poem after Blenheim clearly displays the theme of curiosity and lack of it. The children, Wilhelmine and Peter King, are very curious to know about the Battle of Blenheim and what was the reason behind that and what was the consequences good came out to be. Whereas old Casper has lack of curiosity, or he never feel curious to ask to his parents or the people to whom he has listened that it was a famous victory and thousands of people were dead. He lacked the curiosity. Third, complacency. Old Casper unquestioningly accepts the loss of innocent lives in the Battle of Blenheim as the prize of glorious victory in the war. It seems that he has accepted himself to the fact that people do die in the wars. Throughout in the poem, he is seen repeating that the victory was great and famous, but he is ignorant of the cause of war. Casper's complacency is like that of modern politicians, who dismiss the death of innocent people in war by referring to them with the impersonal phrase collateral damage. Thank you. Please, if you like the video, please like, share and subscribe my channel to get my latest video for ICSE class 9 and 10th students.